Hello, manager. We've reached Unit 14. She may not be a sorceress, but she's one smart cookie. Hello, manager. This is Victor Marron, strategic planning and performance management coach. We are in our final laps of our guide about thriving in the middle. Why managers need to be coaching each other in what we call the DDCs, or the case for distribute development communities for middle managers. Said this, let's begin. Please try to take some notes, and I will be pretty open to answer any question that you may have. We will be asking some questions at the end of this guide in order for you to make it on the action and start developing your own critical thinking. While Pep and Marty are taking their breaks, Caroline, Cheryl and I stay in the room to debrief a bit on what we have heard so far. We all agree that it is comforting to find that Beb is not our robot. She is a human after all, and had failed a couple of times to get where she wanted to go. But we are also experienced enough as managers to know that you can make something look better than it really is as long as you get results. You can take a highly directive approach to managing and expect a lot of slack from senior managers who don't want to mess with a good thing. The next few minutes will tell us whether we have a future applying what Beb developed in our own groups. We are all very committed to a facilitative style of managing as much as possible, and hope we are going to hear will be aligned with that approach. Beb and Marty rejoin us, and Beb jumps right back here where we had left off. Did I become their group facilitator? Oh no. When they asked me to facilitate, I had two things to say. One, an outside facilitator seemed like a great idea. And two, having me in there would defeat my intention of these folks discovering how to reach decisions at a peer level. They were so steeped in having decisions made for them that they would acquiesce if I gave them any hint of a preference, and they would likely infer one if I didn't. So, how did Sonya end up here? Cheryl asks. She doesn't normally spend time away from the classroom. Beb grins again. She interviewed for the job and they hired her. Well, in a manner of speaking, they asked her to join them as their facilitator. This sounds a bit too easy for me, and Beb picks up on my body language. Okay, Ron, it wasn't that simple, but here's how Sonia got the invitation, at my suggestion. The two managers who had initially come to me invited Sonia to get together. They met. They explained what they were looking for, and then they talked for a while about their expectations. Then Sonia did something they didn't expect. She told them she was interested, but not at all if they were going to continue with the format they have been using. Said this, Let me clarify that we are recording in a public space, a cafeteria. So maybe you can hear a little buzz and buzz about plates and coffee and waiters. So please apologize. I hope I can record in a quieter place soon. Said this, let's continue. She explained to them that she would only accept the role if they would agree to lengthen their sessions to 3 hours and maybe add in an extra 1 or 2 hours every 2 weeks for additional work on their own. Her experience led her to conclude that this was a group that needed to engage in some professional development along with the addition of a facilitator. Maybe shifting into fast forward mode in the interest of time, but I don't want to rush. My preference would be to move slower and if possible not repeat Web's missteps if we decide to go down this path. Bev, did you know she was going to do that? Want to just assume? I would concur with a change to the format, so we talked about it before she sprung it on my gang. When she brought it up, it immediately made sense for a couple of reasons. First, and this is important, while my managers had all participated in all the management development curriculum offered here at Moneypump, Sonya was quick to point out the shortcomings of the approach of the company, and she is one of the lead instructors. Managers need knowledge into specific areas where our programs are weak. One is self-knowledge. Most of our managers were originally strong individual contributors who moved up to supervisors and then into the roles they now play. What they learned in our programs was valuable, but primarily technique and situational. A lot of what not to do if you recall your own sessions. Sonia had been looking for an opportunity to provide our managers with deeper understanding of themselves as people and how they affect those around them. In her mind, this program could be that opportunity, provided, of course, that the managers would agree to extend the sessions. She did have some selling to do there. Around Moneypump soft stuff tends to be a hard sell. The second area of weakness our programs have, in Sonja's mind, is that there is a built-in assumption that because a company appoints you as a manager, everybody else will accept you as one, meaning the people who report to you, your peers, and so on. And this, my friends, is very important. The second area of weakness our programs have in Sonia's mind is that there is a built-in assumption that because the company appoints you as a manager, everybody else will accept you as one. Sorry for repeating this, but this is very important, and this happens in every team, in every business unit, and almost in all organizations. Sonia thinks this assumption is based on outdated ideas. 4 generations of managers have moved through the workplace since many of our wonderful and new management ideas were first formulated. 3 of these generations are in the workplace now, and there are significant differences among them. What managers must understand now is that being appointed by the company confers on you the responsibility to develop extraordinary working connections, where something more casual may have been acceptable in your other roles here. If you look, and I did, after Sonia talked about this, our programs at all levels assume that managers are given the authority to get the job done and need to figure out how to use it. We do not stress or teach managers how to build the connections they needed. And remember, managers, connections is our key word here. Try to highlight it in your journal or notepad. Cheryl is deep in thought, having just heard that Babe had to say. Caroline is looking right at me and asks, "Do you agree with that, Ron?" After a slight hesitation, I said, "I hadn't really thought about it before this moment, but what Babe just said makes me think that one of the differences between me and some others who I know are very bright but haven't moved up is that I am just naturally good at building the connections I need with my reports and peers." Webb is pointing out a really important distinctions to us, and while I hadn't given it a lot of thought, intuitively I agree with what she has to say. At this moment, Cheryl comes back from her deep reflection, and I can tell you a number of times I have seen a manager struggle and wonder why they don't just go talk to whoever or see that they need to talk with so and about it. And this is another keyword. Our first one is connection. The second one is reflection. And my friends, this is a managerial mindset that you need to check it out. I'd put some information on the 5 managerial mindsets, and I will be doing a class on the 5 managerial mindsets. This will be next Saturday around 11 a.m. in order for you to have time, be open-minded, try to get some new connections, and try to reflect a little bit about our managerial journeys. Said this, let's continue. I can tell you the number of times I have seen a manager struggle and wonder why they don't just go talk about it. It has never occurred to me that they don't know what to do. Another great problem we see in business units or organizations, and even teams, but mostly in our operational or middle management arena. I feel like slapping my forehead and shouting, though. Pep comes back at that point. "Well, Cheryl, if you should be slapping your forehead, a lot of us would be joining you, including me." Connection builds building is so natural for me at this point in my career that I guess I had just assumed when it wasn't there for other people. It was a choice they were making. That's why the conversation Sonya had with me was so enlightening, and why I immediately agreed to support her idea for that additional time. Let's make a small parenthesis. A lot of connections are done between more extroverted managerial attitudes or personalities, but also introverted personalities, like for example the one of myself, the, which is kind of introverted and very reflective, can be done by other ways rather than talking or having some jokes or just hanging around your peers. It can be done by giving your peers some little gifts, send them personalized emails, making some one-on-one peer discussions or model check-ins. So, if you are introverted manager as I am, you still have a very broad way of making connections and also reflections in your workplace. Said this, let's continue. It sounds to me, says Cheryl, like Moneypump should be redesigning the management development series we all went through. Is Sonia saying that the management development sessions we've been doing are not worthwhile? I am sure that would not be popular point of view among her colleagues. No, quite the opposite. She thinks the sessions are valuable. They just are not sufficient. Her metaphor is that our senior leadership approaches the development process like it's a car wash, where your car is supposed to stay permanently clean once it goes through it. That may seem silly at first, but think about how many times a senior manager has said something to the effect of, I thought these people were already trained. Money Pump requires all managers to participate in a series of development sessions held at the Central Training Center. This is a fairly typical approach in every middle or major organization, in which new hires had to go through an onboarding process, or people need to go back to the Central Training Center after maybe a year or 6 months of working in the job. Remember, this is a maximum thing that I learned from Professor Henry Mintzberg. Even though you have a training facility in your own organization, or you went or go to an external training facility like a university or maybe some courses or action courses or boot camps, you maybe you can learn a lot about it, new techniques, new approaches, the 5 mindsets of the manager, and more do. But almost all of the time, managers who have changed in these courses or have acquired new skills return to unchanged and the same way they went to the trainings, organizations, or business units. So their motivation and their knowledge will fade away after maybe a couple of weeks when they go back to business as usual, or they get a pump with a wall. Said this, let's continue. This is a fairly typical approach, I guess. I know you both went through the programs, so you know what I am about to say. The programs last nearly a week each. They are spaced about a year apart, and you attend with people who are not part of your work group, who you may never see again. Another point that I was saying just before. After each one, you head back to your work group, and no one talks to you about what you learned or how you are going to apply that knowledge. When you complete the third session, that's it. You're done learning and developing. Some of it sticks, most of it doesn't. Some of it is motivation, and it fades away after the second week of business as usual. But all the appropriate boxes get checked. Don't get me wrong, I am not inferring that we shouldn't be doing our managerial development this way. Sonia's point was that something more was needed to leverage the investment a company had been making, and these solutions seemed to her like maybe it would provide a framework that would bring everything together. She kept referring to it as bringing a process approach to development. She also likened it to a fitness regimen. I don't have a fitness regimen, so I had to take her word for that. Cheryl looks perplexed at this last statement, and just a lot of words came popping out of her mouth. So you are actually repeating material that's been covered in the other three sessions. Has anybody complained about that? Cheryl, you are not the first person who has asked that question. When I told my manager that we were going to do, he said the same thing. Why are you going to repeat what they have already learned? Was his way of putting it. If we had arrived at today's meeting earlier, you would have seen the material Sonya was presenting. It may or may not have looked familiar. Another important thing is the presentation style in these learning and development sessions. We, as facilitators or coaches, are also consultants, so our approach to presentation has to be in a very consultant oriented way. I will try to add some slides in here so you can see what I mean with our presentation style, and that is each slide has or needs to have a action oriented title and very great organization of ideas if they are just ideas, and very good organization and explanation of numbers if they are more number oriented. Said this, let's continue. For the most part, the folks in the group have had vague recollections of most of the material and have been glad for the opportunity to go over it again with people they work with regularly. It is not a heavy dose of material, maybe an hour and a half at each session, but it builds on previous sessions. They have also homework, not just much, that enough so they need to apply what they were supposed to. And this is a typical example. In my trainings, I like to talk a lot about the meaning of strategy, the meaning of strategic planning, the meaning of accountability, the meaning of clarity. Because with all the overexposition that we have with information, it is very easy that this information is forgot or misinterpreted, like strategy. Everybody says marketing strategy, product strategy, and they forgot what the real thing about strategy and strategic planning is. And also, learning and development is. Learning and development is a way to upskill ourselves in order to match it with the stakeholder strategy that our business unit or team is up to. That is if our team is oriented to customers, if our team is oriented to corporate, if our teams are oriented to suppliers, or our teams like HR are oriented to employees of our and other departments. We need to upskill in order to develop more strategic factors to reach that KPIs of our strategic factors and try to develop competitive advantages for our business units or organizations. So please keep that in mind. Sonya says that the managerial development sessions we do are really exposure sessions. And exposure is another maxima of management. We need exposure with our ideas and with our new skills. We need to develop our action oriented mindset that we talked in previous sessions. We expose our managers to many new ideas and methods for managing and expect them to handle the application on their own. The truth is that in these sessions they really learn very little. If by learn we meant retain and apply as needed. What we are doing in the peer group is bringing back material they have been exposed to in a context where it can be applied immediately, and then reinforced through the group process, the peer forum process that we talk about. She is completely thrilled by what has been. Unfortunately, this reminded me of the conversation I had with my manager last spring when I suggesting an expense for refresher courses in handling conflict for my managers. That request didn't get approved. Ouch. Caroline starts gathering up her things. So, that's it then? I can tell she's eager to move ahead. It took you 3 tries to get to this point, and now you think you got it right? I am glad we took this time. Beb and I guess the next step is to talk with Sonya and see about using her to facilitate similar groups for us. I know you have moved things around to make the time for us, but it seems like we should let you get back to what you were doing before we interrupted you. This is typical Caroline. She wants to get into action and solve the problem. Babe is now smiling in a way that lets me know Caroline has just fallen into another of her little traps. I am guessing that you think I have something better to do than spend this time with you. Actually, tomorrow, Marty and I are hosting another very similar meeting for a group of directors from our marketing department. We have 2 similar meetings next week for 2 other sessions. Caroline's face reddens a bit. But I thought you were a director and had your own results to produce. Well, I am, and I do. But you've met Marty. He's a very capable guy and a quick study. Fortunately, he came to me right at this process. Was beginning to get legs and requests started to come in from other business units to come around. I am spending more and more of my time with other directors, bringing them the good word, if you will. It is a dream come true for me. You might be surprised to hear this, but I have been shocked at how quickly this idea has gained popularity. There was a time when many people were threatened by the success of others and made up stories about how they got lucky or something like that. Very competitive reactions. What seems to be happening now is that the complexity of our offerings, technology, and the changes in our workforce are doing that perfect storm thing that seems to be popular to talk about. I don't know if it's perfect, but it sure is stormy for a lot of managers these days. They are looking for help now, anywhere they can find it. Timing is everything. Caroline continues her gathering process. Well, I am glad to know we'll be in good company then. And no doubt Sonya wouldn't be surprised to hear from us. Now Webb stands and goes to the conference room door. If it's Sonya, you want to stick around. She opens the door. Sonya, they are all yours now, if they decide to stay. Sonya bounces into this room with a hello. I brought you some cookies, so you better stay to our accountability session. Said this, we've ended Unit 14. We are about to reach the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to cut this training and start in another one. We just have unit 15, 16, and some parting thoughts on my own and of the author of this type of learning and development way of learning. Said this, I want to take some time to say some poem, or not poem but paragraph of Rainer Maria Rilke. If I don't manage to fly, someone else will. The spirit wants only that there be flying, or who happens to do it is that he has only a passing interest. Said this, thank you very much. See you in the best units we are to develop in our next sessions. We are reaching to this ending point of our thriving in the middle. So please stick around with us. We are almost ending this journey. Please try to hear this audio and please write your questions. I will be very glad to answer them. But first, I want to give you a question. Please, what is your experience with learning and development? Just a classroom where you go and learn a bunch of stuff and then you return to unchanged business or organizations? Please try to comment your own experience within your own environment or organizations. I will be very glad to hear you. Goodbye and have a very bright day. Goodbye.